The 95th Academy Awards are still a few months away, but I thought it would be fun over the next few weeks to make some early Oscar predictions in the top few categories. We've talked about the other 3 acting categories, and so now it's time to discuss Best Actor. Who's going to make it into this category at the Oscars? I know, it's still early, but here are the top contenders for Best Actor at next year's ceremony. I would say right now, at the end of November, going into December, we have 2 locks for Best Actor at the Oscars and 1 near lock, and then a lot of other contenders we have to talk about. I think one of the 2 locks that's absolutely going to happen is Brendan Fraser for The Whale. I cannot see him missing. There's been all this talk about Brendan Fraser missing at the Film Independent Spirit Awards. I don't know what really happened there. All I know is since September, I have been following all the festivals it's played at, all the screenings. So many people love this movie, and Brendan Fraser is supposed to be amazing in it, and what a narrative he has. I think Brendan Fraser has a very good chance of winning Best Actor. So if he were to miss, that would be shocking. Darren Aronofsky has directed so many of his actors to Oscar nominations. Think Ellen Burstyn for Requiem for a Dream, think Mickey Rourke for The Wrestler, Natalie Portman won, of course, for Black Swan. His actors often get recognized, and since The Whale's premiere in Venice, I just keep seeing so many raves about it, and it just feels right. Brendan Fraser, at this point in time, feels like the right nomination at the right time, and I don't know who's going to stop him from winning. So I would say he is a lock, no matter what happens at Film Independent Spirit Awards. There also might be some shenanigans at Golden Globes, since Fraser recently said he will not attend that ceremony. So I think he'll still get in regardless of that, since they have drama and comedy musical categories for Best Actor. But, you know, this movie still hasn't really come out yet for a lot of people to see. I think once people start to see the movie, they start sharing their experiences with it, and enough people really take to the Fraser performance, I don't see how he misses. I would be really, really surprised if Brendan Fraser did not make it into Best Actor on Oscar nominations morning. Count him in. The other person I would consider a lock is Colin Farrell for The Banshees of Inisherin. Colin Farrell has been doing fantastic work for decades now. He's never received an Oscar nomination, but boy, was 2022 his year. Started with The Batman, and I think he is great in that movie. Even though he's not in a lot of that film, he definitely leaves an impression. It's a distinct performance, to be sure, and I feel like if The Batman had come out later in the year, we might have been talking about him for a potential Best Supporting Actor nomination. And then he continued to appear in some really acclaimed films like 13 Lives and After Yang, and then The Banshees of Inisherin becomes really one of the hit dramatic films of the fall, a movie that was beloved out of Venice and has been really taking the festival circuit by storm, and I feel like is going to do very well this award season. And I think it's time to reward Colin Farrell with an Oscar nomination. He's terrific in the movie. It's one of my favorite films I've seen in the last few months. It's really stayed with me. It's kind of haunting. It's not exactly the movie I thought I was getting. Like, the storyline of the movie I had not read about beforehand. I didn't know exactly what the relationships between the characters were, what the main character wanted, and I just took to it right away. I found it really engaging and unique, and I think it's one of his best performances on film. It's more vulnerable than we usually see him, very quiet, introspective. And I would be, again, like Fraser, shocked if Farrell didn't make it in. I mean, what's a guy got to do to get an Oscar nomination? The other one I wouldn't say is a lock, but it's a near lock, is Austin Butler for Elvis. This was one of the most stunning performances I saw in a movie theater last summer. I don't think the movie is entirely successful, and I really didn't like the Tom Hanks performance, which was weird for me, because I almost always love Tom Hanks in movies, and I felt like he was the weak link. He was pulling that movie down, whereas Austin Butler, I thought, was sensational. I thought he was terrific and is absolutely deserving of an Oscar nomination. Now, I say it's not a lock because of Taron Egerton in Rocketman. I thought that performance was similarly excellent, and that didn't make it into the top 5 for Best Actor on Oscar nominations morning. I think part of the problem there was the competition was just a lot more fierce in 2019. There were so many amazing performances. Not to say that there aren't this year, but I feel like a lot of the great performances for Best Actor this year are just in smaller films. But if Elvis does well on Oscar nominations morning, if it could get into Best Picture, if it can make it into some of the technical categories, I think Butler makes it. I think if Elvis had come out in the summer of 2019, maybe Butler would have fallen through the cracks. But again, I feel like this year he has a pretty significant shot to make it in. A lot of people really love that movie. I had some issues with it, but overall I liked it. I thought it was really good. And my takeaway of it was just the Butler performance was outstanding. I think he deserves to get into the final 5. So I am predicting him right now. It's not a 100% lock, but I feel pretty good about that one. After that, I would suggest that slots 4 and 5 are pretty wide open right now. A lot of different things can happen. Let's start with Bill Nighy for Living. This is a name that's showing up on a lot of Oscar predictions websites. I don't know a lot about the movie, but it is a Sony Pictures Classics release, and Bill Nighy is one of those actors who have kind of flirted with maybe an Oscar nomination throughout the years. It's never happened for him, but this looks like a really meaty, juicy role that he is going to be amazing in. And I've always loved his work. I've wanted to see him get an Oscar nomination. It feels like this could be his time. It's a Sony Pictures Classics release, so I'm sensing a little bit of The Father here. The Father and Anthony Hopkins. This could be that kind of a movie for Bill Nighy. And since the category is not overly competitive right now, depending on what happens at Golden Globes and SAG, Bill Nighy might make it in, and like everyone else I've talked about so far, would be a first-time Oscar nominee. Until the movie premiered, I think most of us were thinking Hugh Jackman could finally return to the Oscar stage for The Son. Hugh Jackman, of course, has only received 1 nomination so far for Les Miserables about 9 years ago. And speaking of The Father, The Son is directed by the same man and felt like it could be a big part of the Oscar conversation. But it's been a weird few months of hearing mostly negative reviews. I feel like right when it premiered, I saw some positive notices, and then ever since, it's been either mixed or negative. I don't know if it will show up on Oscar nominations morning with nothing. I feel like if it were to get in somewhere, Hugh Jackman might take that 5th slot. It wouldn't be outside the realm of possibility. I've talked about The Fabelmans a lot in my Oscar predictions videos going all the way back to August. Can Gabriel LaBelle make it into Best Actor? I've seen his name on some prediction websites. That would be pretty shocking to me. I think if there's one younger actor who gets in this year, it's going to be Austin Butler for Elvis. I don't know if LaBelle can get in, but I've seen his name tossed around. If the enthusiasm for the movie is at an all-time high come February, like maybe he could get in to that 5th slot. It's possible. I've loved seeing Adam Sandler's performance in Hustle get some notices. I've seen some For Your Consideration ads. I feel like he's going after this nomination. I still think the best performance I saw in a 2019 movie was Adam Sandler's turn in Uncut Gems. I still think about that movie and that performance. That was extraordinary work. And he couldn't get in for that. So I'm like, I don't know if they have it out for Adam Sandler. If the right film and role came along, maybe he could get in. But I don't know if Hustle is it. I watched the movie last summer. I enjoyed it. I haven't thought about it much since. It does not have the staying power of Uncut Gems. That would be a surprising Oscar nomination to me. The other Adam I don't see happening is Adam Driver for White Noise. Now, this movie's coming to Netflix at the end of December. We'll see. Maybe it does better than expected and gets more notices. I feel like since its Venice debut, I haven't heard a whole lot about it. But I don't know, is this movie going to show up with nothing? I don't know. Right now, I'm not predicting Adam Driver getting in. He's obviously done well with the Oscars before. They like his work. I just don't think White Noise will be the movie that gets him his third nomination. Timothée Chalamet, Bones and All. I am so intrigued by this movie. Like, can this film get into some top categories at the Oscars, or will it be overlooked for some other titles? I don't know if the subject matter of Bones and All is going to play very well with some Academy members, so in a way I think Mark Rylance from the film has the best shot of an Oscar nomination in the supporting actor category. I'm hearing amazing things about Taylor Russell's performance. Russell did get in at Independent Spirit Awards, and Chalamet didn't. So I don't think this is going to be Chalamet's year for his second Oscar nomination. What about Paul Mescal for After Sun? This is a movie I keep hearing about. I'm excited to see it. He is a great actor, and he's getting nominated for a lot of things. Not only the Film Independent Spirit Awards, but also the Gotham Awards. I think I saw his name show up at a couple other smaller award ceremonies, so his name's in the mix. My question is the movie After Sun going to be seen by enough people? Like, will enough Academy voters screen this film to get him to an Oscar nomination? But keep his name in the mix. If not for this movie, I do think Paul Mescal has an Oscar nomination in him. The other name I have to mention who also just got a Film Independent Spirit Award nomination is Jeremy Pope for The Inspection. This is another film this year I have not been able to see, but I've heard great things about. And I feel like similarly to After Sun, The Inspection is just too tiny of a film. I just don't know if that can break through for any major Oscar nominations. But Jeremy Pope is a fantastic actor. He's doing great work. I really hope his time will come soon. I've heard a lot about Tom Cruise getting in for Best Actor for Top Gun Maverick. I don't think that's going to happen. I know there's a lot of love for that movie. I think it has a shot at a Best Picture nomination and some technical nominations, but Best Actor, that would be surprising to me. I just don't think it's in the league of some of his other performances that have been nominated, like Magnolia, like Born on the 4th of July. And I think there's 5 better male performances we'll get this year for that slot. I feel like that movie is just too big of a blockbuster, too much of an action genre movie for him to make it into a Best Actor slot at the Oscars. What about Tom Hanks for A Man Called Otto? I don't really know a lot about this movie. This has been a very strange year for Tom Hanks. He's one of my favorites, but I haven't really liked him in anything this year. I felt he was the weak link in Elvis, as I talked about before. I really did not like his performance as Geppetto in Pinocchio. And then A Man Called Otto, I watched the trailer, and it just looks kind of so-so. I don't think he's going to get in for that unless it drops and everybody loves it, which would be surprising to me. I don't think Tom Hanks gets in on Oscar nominations morning for A Man Called Otto or Elvis. I feel like Felix Cameraere should be in the mix for All Quiet on the Western Front. He would make my top 5 nominations. I thought he was outstanding in that war film. It's currently on Netflix. I loved every minute of that movie. I found it really absorbing, and his performance is terrific. I feel like it's going to be hard for a young actor in a 2.5-hour German war film to get a Best Actor nomination, but he would make my list. I thought he was really fantastic. How well will Decision to Leave do on Oscar nominations morning? I feel like that film could get in for Best Picture and Director, and could any of the actors in it make it in? Park Hae-il is getting rave reviews for his performance in this movie, and that would be a really awesome Oscar nomination. It would be really cool, especially if, let's say, he got in at Critics' Choice, but not Golden Globes, not SAG, not BAFTA, but then he surprised on Oscar nominations morning, he is in my 6th or 7th slot right now. I think that could happen. I'm not close enough to predicting him yet. Let's see what happens over the next few weeks. But I feel like he has a better shot than some people might be predicting. Anything can happen with that 5th slot. I feel like Bill Nighy has a pretty good shot at the 4th slot, but the 5th is completely wide open right now. Any one of these men I've talked about could potentially get in. I think some have a better chance than others, but as of right now, if I had to predict who's going to make it into that 5th slot, I would say it's going to be Diego Calva for Babylon. This film by Damien Chazelle has gotten lots of mixed reviews. Some people really love it, others aren't so keen on it, but from most of the reviews I've read, I feel like the two standout performances in the film are Margot Robbie and Diego Calva. Robbie was my 5th slot choice for Best Actress, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna say Calva is my 5th slot choice for Best Actor. I just don't think we can turn our eyes away from a 3-hour Damien Chazelle movie about Hollywood. I think this movie is going to do very well on Oscar nominations morning. I think it gets into Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress for Robbie. From what I've read, Diego Calva is the breakout star of this movie. And so I feel more confident predicting him right now than some of these other actors who might give similarly terrific performances, but in smaller films. Everyone's going to see Babylon. I might change my mind in the weeks to come. I still have a lot of movies to see. But as of this recording, my predictions for Best Actor at the Oscars are as follows. Austin Butler in Elvis, Diego Calva in Babylon, Colin Farrell in The Banshees of Inisherin, Brendan Fraser in The Whale, and Bill Nighy in Living. Join me in my final early Oscar predictions video coming up here very shortly, where I'm talking about the big one. What 10 films are getting into Best Picture? Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below, who do you predict will be nominated for Best Actor at next year's Oscar ceremony? Is there anyone you think I left off the list? See you next time.